out with a trans person or a male until things just seem to be very different than you dating or just hooking up with regular cis women. Now, what is it? How does your ex-wife or ex-girlfriend know that you date trans women?
I have a whole YouTube page that I've had for the better part of 10 years.
Okay.
I've
Example, it's
I,
simple
I've
answer.
I've been interviewed, a few dozen times, on with both print and electronic media. Um, uh, you know, I speak in. I've had speaking engagements in public forums and things of that nature. She knows. I told her what she knows. She knew a long time ago. She knew
Okay.
20 years. She knew before we got divorced 20 years ago.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask this because it's for us. We will understand it. Is she black or is she white?
She's black. She
Okay.
wasn't happy about it.
Okay. So you okay. So you understand where I was going with that.
It's been 20 years and she still has a problem with it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and let me say this, and I've said this in a number of again, print and live interviews that I've done. She didn't deserve the drama the trauma that I put upon her. She was collateral damage because I wasn't able to walk in my truth. That's not her fault. She didn't deserve any of that. That was on me. I admit that I'm accountable for my own actions. At some point, I hope that she learns to forgive me. I've forgiven myself. I've reached out to ask for forgiveness because I was wrong as two left shoes. But again, this is something that in this community we don't talk about. And yet I've talked to literally hundreds of men over the years about it, reaching out. Just you can go on my YouTube page and just read some of the comments. Guys are looking for other men who walk this path. I have a Facebook group that I co-created with my good brother Jonathan Hayden called the Trans Supportive Brotherhood, where we have about 175 men in the group. We have regular Zoom calls where we just get together and just talk about life, and we talk about what it is and the struggles that we go through and in dating. And some of the guys are married, have been married for a number of years. Some guys are newly married. Some guys are in long-term relationships. Some guys are searching for relationships. Some guys are still searching to find themselves. So, we're there to support each other. But the main focus of the group, the Trans Supportive Brotherhood, is to support trans people. That's both trans men and trans women, because we do have some trans men in our group who date trans women. So they are indeed our brothers. So it's just having other people who have walked the path and can share that journey.
Okay. Now, let's just say you're walking down the street with the potential person you're in a relationship with, you're dating, but yet this person's from the neighborhood. And everybody knows this person was different before they were the woman that they are today. But yet you two still live in the same neighborhood, and they know this person for being the old person. Let's just say the gender they were before. And you two are hooking up, or not just hooking up, you're dating. Would you be ashamed if you walk down the street and somebody recognized this person and you, and would you be ashamed of that?
Let me give you more of my history, my story. After I got divorced, I got into a relationship where I was with a trans woman for about little more than 10 years. We are still friends today. In fact, her father was over. I barbecued for her dad. Her mom and dad are friends with my mom and dad. They're the best in-laws I ever had, even though we never officially got married. She helped raise, especially my youngest son was 3 when we were together, when we first got together. So, and he's 22 now. So both of my sons, my other son is 34. they call her mom. That's their stepmom. They still call her mom. They still reach out to her today. So as far as me being embarrassed about walking down the street with a trans person, or worrying about people knowing, her dead name and things of that nature. I'm a big guy. People aren't going to disrespect, a trans woman in my presence. So it's
That's
never happened.
That's wonderful.
So again,
the reason
these are, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
Mhm.
these are questions for someone who is just starting out in the game. Now I've been doing this for 35, 36 years, something like that now. Those, it's time to get beyond, trans attraction 101.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well,
because that's where we're stuck at, and we continue to talk about. And there's a lot more things to this than just me worrying about. I know who I'm with, and I respect who I'm with, and I'm going to defend who I'm with. That comes with the territory. If you're not willing to do that as a man, then you need to step off.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked you that, Troy, is because I, I I'm try, I'm from Orlando, the Bible Belt. I've been living in Toronto 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so for me, my parents lived with religion all day, every day. So the things they talk to us directly, and they talk to us openly and honestly about just real life, how you have to face things. And for me being the baby and transitioning, they never brought that up to me, but they always wanted me to get a fair handshake, and they're not going to be beating around the bush when they have a question for me. This is why I'm asking you certain things that I think would be interesting to the trans women, not so much the public,
Mm-hmm.
because trans women in general, if they go out with you and they feel like they are the person that they're supposed to be, they want to know that they can walk out with Troy every day and just feel that way naturally without thinking anything else. And this is something men don't tell trans women. They don't tell them that they try to hide. Everything's at night, or a hoodie on, or behind closed doors. And the reason I like I'm trying to get to the grassroots is because the girls need to know first and foremost that the man that they are with, they are comfortable with, and he is comfortable being the man that he is. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you just said, you're not afraid to be out in public with the person that you care about or you're dating, and you're not worried about what others say. The girls need to hear that. So it's great that you said that, and now the girls now will have an understanding that some men do care enough about them to go out in public without feeling afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that's very important. Even for me, I mean, I was in a relationship for a long time. So I generally, in the middle of my transition, I was mostly male. I was dressing as a male, so he was very comfortable with that. He couldn't deal with Stephanie because Stephanie was a show business girl and transitioning. He didn't understand all that. But he didn't have a problem going out in public with Larry. Now, it was good that you made it clear about that. Second of all, most trans women meet men at night, not during the day, because to be honest and to be fair, most of the girls generally don't have regular jobs. They either do drag shows or they're showgirls or they do other things to have an income. So generally their life is at night. And this is generally where they meet most of the men in their lives. Now, the ones that do try to function during the day needs to understand that there is a place in society for them where they can work, where they can live, they can feel valued, and they can own a house, they can drive a car without people yelling obscenities out the window, driving by your house, calling you all kinds of things. And the reason I'm saying these things is because I did a test to see how trans women felt. And a lot of trans women hide because of a lot of just neighborhood things or the way society sees them. Now, how do your children, were your children dealing with this really well at the beginning, or did it take them some time to adjust?
Well, my younger son wasn't really even old enough to understand what it meant. So he kind of grew up with a trans woman as a stepmother.
Oh, okay.
My other son was about 14 when he met her, when we started this relationship. For him in the beginning, it was difficult. I did talk to him. We had some deep diving discussions. He had some confusion and anger, but I have an older nephew who happens to be gay. And at that time, he was living with some trans women because his mom had put him out of the house. So these were the women who were making sure that he went to school every day, that made sure he got his high school diploma, that encouraged him and helped him live. So my nephew had a different idea about who trans women were. And so, combination of me talking to my son and his cousin, he got over it and understood it. And again, like I said, both of my sons still call my ex mom. And, whenever they call her and they're complaining about something or moaning about something, they talk to her, and then she calls me, and then I know.
Okay. Now, when you have these groups that you run on Facebook and YouTube, educating other men who might like the company of trans women or want to date them, is this for you, when you're listening to the men, is this more of a sexual thing, or you think they're looking for a real relationship?
It's multi-layered. Some guys are going to be what I call Pokemon collectors, but they're like that with cis women. They just got to have them all. They want to collect them all. They got to catch them all. That's what they do. Some men will never settle down with a woman, with a singular woman. They're always going to play the field and try to get as many as they can. Other guys want more than that. And, there's levels to everything that we do. And once a guy gets to a level where he wants to be a little bit more serious or wants to understand, what these attractions mean, this is what the group is for. Some of the guys are married. I mean, we all don't get along. I mean, there are some things that we definitely don't see eye to eye. Me being, an OG, and coming up through when there was no internet and there was no accessibility, there was no information that was accessible at our fingertips. And I came up when that didn't exist. And when you went to the library to look it up, it wasn't there. So we're in a different age. We're in the age of information. So I think a lot of guys do two things. One, they like to remain willfully ignorant. The second part is they live in their fear. And until they're able to grow out of those two things, they'll never be ready.
Okay. Now, I want to just ask you this because I think that it's important to our audience and mainly to the girls. I'm really here to try to educate trans women about there is some men that can offer them stability, hope of having a positive relationship, and the mere fact of that there's somebody out there that will love them and care about them. Now, why did you decide to do this? Why did you decide to speak, to come out? Because generally Black men are the worst ones for conversation in the first place, mainly when it comes to relationships.
Well, I had been, there's always been a loose community when the internet started going around way back in the AOL days, and then the Yahoo days. There are always groups where, you know, trans attracted men, I guess you would call them then, and trans women communicated. You know, we intermingled, we talked. So there were always loose groups over the years where we would just have real open conversations. I remember Miko Hicks. She lives in Dallas. She has a weekly radio show. She used to have, when Blog Talk Radio first started, she used to have a talk show called Tea Time, I believe it was. And every week I would be on her show, and it was just a call-in, you know, show. So I would mostly be on the phone. It wasn't video like we do today. And she never used my name. She used to always call me the distinguished gentleman from Michigan. And one day during an argument with one of the other panelists on the show, I was getting probably a little out of pocket, and somebody called me by my name. Troy Kennedy, calm down. I said, oh, I clutched my pearls. I said, oh my God. How do you know me? Oh my goodness. And, you know, it just made me realize that, you know, what I was saying carried weight. Then, you know, a few years later, Diamond Styles, Diamond lives down in Dallas. We, again, on these forums that we were in, she said, well, I need a guy to interview. And, you know, no guy will speak up. I was like, what the hell I look like? And so I drove to Indianapolis. She was visiting her grandmother after Thanksgiving, and we taped an hour-long conversation. So it was something that needed to be done. I know a lot of Black men in my own personal life, some who will admit it, others who won't, who mess with the girls. You know, the more I became open, the more that I was able to see. And the more people came to me and talking to me about it. So I just decided that someone had to do it. And I was allowed to be on 2 different women's forums, you know, their platforms, to speak out and to make a difference. And that's, you know, and I owe that to them, and to, you know, to them giving me that choice.
Well, you know, Troy, that's amazing. I'm gonna be honest. I take my hat off to you for having the courage, because I know our people. I know how they are. Now, when you are dating a trans woman that feels that, do you feel that the trans women that you have dated separates themselves from the gay community that they first grew up in, and now that they feel that they're women, and you say, well, let's go support Pride, or let's go support this group, or let's go support this, or let's just go, and she says, oh no, I'm not a part of that anymore. My life is different now. Have you met girls like that? Because I have girls here that tell me that I don't do those gay things anymore. I don't go to drag bars. I don't do shows.
I've never dated a woman like that.
Okay, wonderful. Now, do you see any change in the way things are going now, with men becoming more open to dating trans women, or do you still think men are just, you know, hiding? I mean, because basically people aren't thinking about the fact that they're trans. People don't think about that. The first thing they always think is you're either gay or you're bisexual or you're straight. That's just how normal society looks at anything, no matter who you're dating. Because if they say you're dating a trans person, the first thing most women would think is that you're gay.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you a little story. I'm gonna tell you a story about my own family. Okay, I've told this story 1,000 times. The term heteronormative, I don't really think is really a real thing. And I'll use the males in my generation and the next generation in my family. So it'll be my brothers and I, and our male children, including my sister's male children. I have 2 brothers. One brother, it would be called heteronormative. The other, he happens to like the girls too. So is my brother who is heteronormative, is he normal, or is my brother and I normal? Okay. Now let's go with the children. There are 5 boys. The oldest one is gay. The second one, he likes trans women as well as cis women. The next 2 are gay. And then the last 2 are heteronormative. So who's normal? The difference between my family and everybody else's family is that we live our truth.
Okay.
There's that.
Now, I understand. I understand it very clearly. Now, do you think that in reality, in real reality, like you say, living your truth, do you think trans women that you dated thought that the relationship could lead to something really positive besides just sex or company?
Well, the 10-year relationship that I was in at the time, the marriage laws, her name wasn't changed. Getting your name and your gender marker changed wasn't easy at that point. I mean, of course, over the years, laws have changed and things have become different. So she didn't want to get married and it be just a symbolic wedding. Today, that would be different. Her gender markers changed, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, I wanted to get married back then. My first real, what do you call it? What is the word? What's his word? Monogamous. My first monogamous relationship didn't happen until I was with the woman I was with for 10 years. I didn't know how to be in a monogamous relationship until that point. So we knew that it could be more. But again, as we were evolving, society was evolving. And there were some things that I didn't know yet. Again, we're talking almost 20 years ago when we first got together. I'm not the same man that I was 20 years ago, nor is she the same woman. But mind you, we're very close. We'll always be very close because, again, my children call her mom. But I was in 2 other relationships, one for a little more than a year, another for 2.5 years. One was an older girl, one was a younger girl. So there was definitely more than just sex. I mean, we supported each other. I supported their work. One did drag and was an entertainer. The other was a musician and an activist. And even though we did kind of fall out ugly in an ugly manner, but still, that's what me as a man. What I want in a relationship is a woman who I can grow old with, even though I am older, mature, well seasoned.
Okay.
So I'm not just looking for a sexual relationship. I mean, in these last few years, sex isn't the most important thing. What else you got? I can get a pretty girl. What else you got?
Now, let's just say you're out with your friends. Now, I want to say this because for me, I understand the different ways of sometimes the way trans women look and act. So I think now, Troy, you're very funny. Now, let's just say you're sitting in a bar and you say, well, my girl's coming to pick me up or to drop the keys off for me to go do something or this and that. And you're in the bar, let's just say you're sitting around a bunch of the guys and things are going well. And we know these are just typical situations, whether you're hanging out on the porch, drinking beers and shooting the shit, or whatever it may be. Now, she comes up. Now, sometimes trans women can sometimes be bigger than the man. Sometimes have stronger features than normal women. And people figure this out real quick because we live in a sexual world. So people are constantly sizing up each other. Now, have you ever felt really uncomfortable with the trans woman you were dating?
I mean, in the beginning, again, as I've said, there's levels to this. In the beginning that I can remember a time when I was married at the time. I married the same woman twice, by the way.
Oh,
That's another long story that we won't get into. But I remember being out with a trans woman, and I used to run a paint store years ago, and I ran into one of regular painters who come in the store, coming out of a restaurant. And I was embarrassed. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I panicked.